The Drum Candy Podcast is brought to you by Drum Factory Direct.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into episode 7 of season 4 of the Drum Candy Podcast. This is your host, Mike Dawson, coming to you from Drum Factory Direct in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This week, I have Tom Wendt and David Throckmorton back in the studio, and we are doing 10 reasons to love the great Joe Chambers. Now, the name Joe Chambers might not be a household to everyone. If you're way deep into modern jazz, I'm sure you are a fan of his. But if you're not, there's tons of great music out there. He's played on some of the classic records by Wayne Shorter and Joe Henderson and many others. So we're going to dive deep into 10 reasons to love Joe Chambers. I kind of let Tom and Dave handle the bulk of it because for me, there's just one record I go to often that represents, when I want to hear Joe Chambers. But now I've got a ton of other things to listen to. So let's get to it with Joe Chambers.
Man.
Why don't we pick Joe Chambers, first of all, for this?
I love Joe, too.
Yeah, he's amazing. I feel like sometimes there were so many great drummers, so many amazing jazz drummers that were, not that he only made Blue Note records, but from the classic Blue Note kind of records to the 60s, there's so many, everybody thinks of Elvin and Tony right away, and then you go back and you have, you could speak better than me probably, but there's always, Philly Joe and Blakey, of course, and, so many more, Billy Higgins, on and on and on. And when I was coming up and first got turned on to Joe in the 90s, I got familiar with him, I felt like, why am I not hearing about this guy more? And, whether it was drum magazines or talking to musicians.
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard him, I was like, this guy's super amazing. Just
Absolutely.
Incredible. Like ride cymbal beats, super amazing, really influential for me personally. And I also just loved a lot of the music he was involved with. So that helps,
That was kind of what it was for me, too.
Yeah.
I enjoyed his playing, but so many of the records are just incredible records. So and for me, his playing, of course, but his compositions.
Yeah.
And, he was a great mallet player. He was an important member of M Boom, Max Roach's percussion ensemble.
Oh, that's right.
And there's a lot more to him, I think, than a lot of people sort of understand.
I'm sure there's a lot more to him than I'm even familiar with.
Well, likewise. And I also think in my opinion, he's one of the most influential players that doesn't really get talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think he's influenced a lot of drummers who play today.
And I think I hear more about him now than I used to in some ways from other people.
Sure.
But, like I said earlier, not as much as like the mainstays that always get talked about.
Where do we begin? So I only picked one because literally there's one record that I go to all the time, and I let you guys pick the others. So
we can start wherever you want, man.
Let's do yours, Mike.
Yeah, let's start with Shade of Jade. To me, this is,
it's one of the most classic records of that era.
I think
everything about it is great. The players, the music, everything,
And there's like an edginess to him that I really like. It's like a certain angular.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
He's not super precise, but there's a lot of power and soul to it. And at the time, I'd kind of checked out this record. I was hanging out with Mickey Roker a bunch, and it was kind of like, oh, these are the same sort of generational players. There's some R&B kind of stuff happening in their vibe.
They were contemporaries for sure.
Yeah, and his cymbal sound like redefined everything for me. I don't know what I did. I had a custom 18 that I taped up trying to get this sound or something crazy. There's going to be ads popping up on the audio.
That's all right.
So while this is getting through the ads, so this is A Shade of Jade off of Joe Henderson, Mode for Joe. This is to me is the record for Joe Chambers. So I'm excited to hear your guys' picks because I need more. This is the one where I've listened to it a million times, and
Sure.
Like you said, it's some of my favorite music. So just the beginning. Oh, the way he accents the tune is so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So weird. Here we go. I could listen to the whole track, but man,
Yeah.
that cymbal changed everything for me. And I just realized for the first time ever that he's accenting the vibraphone part.
Yep.
Why did I not hear that the first 8,000 times I've listened to that?
But you know what, man? That's what makes these records so great. We
Yeah.
talk about that all the time. You know, you hear it the 10,001th time,
Yeah, right.
and you go like, "Whoa, what's
Yeah.
that?" You know,
I don't
Yeah.
know why
It's
I never
so
heard
great.
it before.
Yeah.
So good. Just the way
The
he
sound of
phrases.
that, the harmony and the horns, and it's an amazing tune. It's a
Yeah. It's a tune a lot of people I feel like that I play with play a lot too.
It's
like
played,
I've been
yeah.
playing that
Really?
tune a lot the last 5,
It is
6
played,
years.
yeah, which is great.
You know.
Do you try to do the Joe thing, or I mean, how do you?
I usually don't. I mean, the influence is there for sure because I love him so much. But like, for instance, I play it with Dan Wilson. Sometimes we'll do it like a straight feel, almost like it's funkier.
Oh,
a little.
yeah.
But if we play a swing, and he's always like waiting for me to do the Joe Chambers thing, you know, playing those offset accents, you know, and I usually never do it. He kind of gives me the look like, "What are you doing?" Like I'm just playing the regular ones.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. You can do that.
Yeah.
So what I picked up from him, see if I'm accurate, is he phrases in threes a lot in 4/4, like that. His cymbal beat cycles in threes often.
Mm-hmm.
That was just one thing I picked up. Like, oh, I should try that. And how does that shape the way I would comp around someone?
Like a dee da da dee da.
Yeah, like everything is
dee-da-da,
sort of a
yeah.
3/4 kind of
Yeah, there's a
loop
lot of
to
that.
it. Super
Yeah.
slick. What is the cymbal? Anyone know?
Well, I don't know exactly. I mean, I've talked to some people about my friend, like Paul Wells, and I talk about
Yeah.
sometimes. I think there's some A. It's like a
A lot of A's.
A at some point, and there's definitely a 22-inch K that he was playing for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know what's on what records totally. You know, like that cymbal to me sounds like an A.
Yeah.
It does.
You know, especially the way just hearing it now through this. You know, but
I think
I haven't thought about that for a while. Then I heard him go into time. I was like, ooh, that cymbal
Yeah.
sounds nasty.
I think one of the things I try to always keep in mind when I listen to these guys from this era is, you know, drum equipment was not what it is today at all. So these guys didn't have a whole lot to choose from, you know. And the other thing to realize is they weren't stars making a ton of money. You know, some of these guys had little endorsement deals, but they weren't, wealthy, artists that had a ton of money. You know, they
Yeah.
kind of got what they could, you know. I mean, I'm sure they picked cymbals sometimes, but sometimes they played what they could get their hands on.
Yeah.
So, it's not, they were not spending hours, finding the perfect cymbal for
Yeah.
this date. They weren't doing that.
So what you're saying is nothing's changed. We're all playing what we can get our hands on.
For us, that is very true.
Yeah.
I mean, for me anyway.
It's so distinct, and also his snare drum is so explosive.
Yeah, very,
yeah.
very like.
Yeah.
It's like saturated.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like on every record he sounds like that. too.
Strong. He's really strong.
Yep.
And I don't think when I've seen video and playing, it doesn't ever look like overexerting himself or being
No.
overly forceful. He just has that's his touch, and it's really beautiful too. Unless whether it's loud or soft, to me, it's like it's strong and it stands out, but I don't feel like he's overdoing anything.
No. For me, I almost chose this track, but I wasn't sure. If you listen to McCoy Tyner's Tender Moments, the opening track, Mode for Miles, he's just, Mode for John, sorry, not Mode for Miles. He's just, that's like him at his like most, some of the stuff he plays is like, wow, And if you listen on a good set of speakers or headphones, you can hear, it's Van Gelder recording, and you can hear he's filling the room up, with sound.
I've never met him. Is he a big dude?
Yes, he's tall.
I've never met him either.
He's a pretty tall guy.
Sounds like he's a big dude.
Yeah, he's a pretty big
Looks
guy.
like big, strong,
Yeah,
broad
big
shoulders.
hands.
And
And he's a man of few words. He's very,
yeah.
So that's my entryway, and I'll turn it over to you guys now. Where do we go?
take your pick.
You want to pick one of yours?
Yeah,
Sure.
This is so I picked 2 songs off of this record, this Wayne Shorter record called Etc., which I'm not sure if it's actually the first thing I ever heard him on, but it's the first thing that captured my imagination. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so bad.
Yeah.
And I just listened to this over and over and over and over.
Which tune?
Let's do the one that you just had on, Barracuda.
Barracuda. All right. Give me a minute.
General Assembly.
That's right.
Just scary.
What year?
June of 65.
65? Yeah.
65. So would this have been in Wayne's discography? Where does it land with like Speak No Evil and all that?
It was just after that.
Really?
Speak No Evil was December 64, I believe. So it's right in there with Juju and
Interesting.
Speak No Evil. It's right in that classic era.
It's funny when you go back to a lot of that stuff, how much of it is within the same
It's amazing, yeah.
2 or 3 year period.
Yeah,
I think
it's pretty incredible.
It's ridiculous.
I think these records sounds very different than those, though. Like a different vibe when you put a different drummer on the band. Is the rest of the whole band's different?
It's
right?
very. I mean, Herbie.
Okay, so it's from the top.
Sure.
Is that what I can't remember what
You didn't give me any
Yeah.
spots, so
I think it's probably the top 10.
all right. That's a totally different ride sound. That's a K, right? Would you guess?
I would guess.
It sounds like it certainly could be. Yeah.
Man, there's some Elvin vibe in that I didn't hear in the Joe Henderson record.
Yeah, I mean, I think. What do I know? But I mean,
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm
I
sure
mean,
some of that is.
we've
in
all
there.
heard Elvin
Yeah.
with Wayne so much too. It's and
They-
you know
they-
the Van Gelder recordings. It's easy to kind of
Yeah.
to hear it as a similar style or a
Sure,
similar
sure.
vibe. You know.
But they were all on that scene together, so they were all hearing each other, and I think that influence just kind of comes in, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think whoever you're around and you're hearing, both live and on record, I mean that's gonna inform what you do to some extent. I think anyway. I'm sure that's
Sure.
true for me.
Is there a better time period than 63, 64, 65? I mean,
There was a lot of great
holy
music, man.
smokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine just being around New York that time?
I've talked to a lot of people who were, and it's everybody's just kind of like, yeah, it was amazing. It was everywhere.
Because it wasn't just that. You also had, like Hendrix was coming up and
all that
the
stuff.
Beatles were breaking through. I mean,
Well, one of the people I've
Goodness.
talked to this about is the great Mensa Wali from Kinte Arts, and he was in the middle of all that. And he told me that like those guys like Bobby Hutcherson, Freddie, Joe Chambers, like they were all working together, and like he said, you could go hear those guys play at clubs in Brooklyn and stuff back then. Like that's you know what I mean? Like different combinations of those guys. Like that would have been just
Amazing.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
I can't even imagine.
because those records are literally just a little
Snapshot.
snapshot. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You get this little window into that.
yeah, did this band ever go on the road? Probably not.
I doubt it.
Not to my knowledge, I would doubt it though. I mean, most of these were just recording bands. These guys would get
crazy.
record dates and they would say, okay, who's available? What can I do? What's the music I want to play?
Yeah.
Any specific reason why you picked that?
I mean, there's some drum breaks and
It's killing.
I always loved like what we were kind of singing along with it earlier when it was playing for the
Yeah.
sound check, or whatever, and it's like just all that, just those. It's like whoa, man! It's just so forceful and strong and
Personality.
feels
just,
personality, ideas. Tom and I actually just did a discussion about this album for another series.
Oh, that's right.
That Tom leads, the Vinyl Report, and we talked about that album in general. There's 5 tunes on this album, etc. It's just a quartet record with Cecil McBee on bass and Herbie on piano and Joe, and it's kind of because this jumped right out at me when I heard it. I was like, this whole record just kills me. It's probably one of my top 20 records ever. And it seemed like there's so much going on, and there is in some ways, but no one's ever in each other's way. We talked about this the other day, and it's like there's all these new ideas, but it's very patient. I think a lot of times I fell victim to this, and still do at times. Like, you get inspired by something, and you want to maybe start incorporating something into your own playing, and then there's an urge or a habit of maybe trying to overdo it, trying to force things too much. And when I hear Joe, it never sounds to me like overly aggressive or you know what I mean? Like overactive. It just always feels like it fits naturally.
Yep.
So
the other
that's something in general about his playing that I just really love.
Of course.
It's active and it's dynamic and it's sensitive, but it never feels like it's over the top.
No. The other thing we talked about when we were talking about this record is the fact that these are all young men. I mean, they are not like older, seasoned pros, so to speak. They're quite young, and to play with that level of artistic maturity is really, I mean, that's an incredible thing.
How old would Joe have been in '65? His birthday?
I used to, and I forgot. I should have.
How old would Wayne have been?
Wayne was probably older. Joe was younger. I think his first record was Freddie Hubbard's Breaking Point, which is, I think, '63. So he was in his mid-20s, I think. I mean, he wasn't old.
Crazy.
I mean, it's amazing.
I wonder how much of it is his melodic and harmonic knowledge, too, like knowing the compositions more than just trying to play drums on top,
I'm sure that plays into it. I mean, he was a very complete musician. I mean, when you listen to the early tunes of his that are on these records, like Mirrors, stuff like that, I mean, they're beautiful songs.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't sound like somebody just,
I didn't know that was his tune.
Yeah. That beautiful ballad. Oh, my gosh.
And I'm sure we'll get to this, but the Bobby Hutcherson band, like, so much of that stuff is Joe's
A
writing.
lot of it is.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And
On Components.
Spiral.
Yeah. There's a lot of his music, man.
All right, Tom, what do you got? You want to go with in order? Because I put them in order.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Small Guys. Tell me about that one.
Oh, Small Guys. That's a later one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's do that one.
Well, yeah, whatever order.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
All good. All good. Right. So this is an interesting record. I kind of chose this because it shows Joe in a setting that most people who are familiar with him would never guess he'd be on this record. So this is a Lee Konitz record. And if you're familiar with Lee Konitz, if you're not familiar with Lee Konitz, he's an alto saxophonist who was one of the sort of premier students of Lenny Tristano, the pianist who sort of came out of Charlie Parker but developed his own sort of school. And it's very, very linear. And this record features Lee Konitz and another saxophonist of that same ilk named Ted Brown, who was a really good player. But they play very light, and it's very line-driven, very linear. And one of the characteristics of the Lenny Tristano school is they wanted it to swing, but Lenny didn't like the drummer to interact a lot with the soloist. So it was kind of just a lot of time playing, which for a lot of people would be like, oh, that sounds boring, But it's sort of a characteristic of that style.
What year is this recording?
This is from like '71.
Okay, I don't know this record.
Yeah, it's off the beaten path, but and there's not like you'll go ahead. We'll play it.
All right.
We'll
So this is from the top, or is this an excerpt?
It's an excerpt.
Okay. Interesting.
So, it's you can hear the way those saxophonists are playing. That's a great kind of window into that style. And, the cymbal beat is beautiful. It feels great, but he's really, he's respecting their styles. He's not trying to, get in there so much, And it's a very interesting rhythm section. The great Albert Daly on piano, and that's Rufus Reed. Very interesting rhythm section. Like when I saw that record, I was like, wow, I bought it just because I thought, like, I got to hear this. What's this like?
Sure.
But it just goes to show that even though he was very innovative and he was this incredible improviser, he could just take care of business and do the gig, and make the music happen. Sometimes, as we all know, when you're on a gig, sometimes it's not about what you want, but what the music needs,
Sure.
and what the leaders are trying to convey musically. And he could do that too. So
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly wasn't a lot of space for him to do much else.
Yeah,
anyway.
there's a lot of lines, right?
What are you going to say amongst that?
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of why I chose it. It's just like, yeah, he can do a lot of different. He's more versatile than people might think.
What would you call that style? It sounds like it's coming out of bebop, but it's
It
not.
is. It's sort of a cross between bebop and cool jazz, if you want to put a label on it. I mean, it's the saxophonists like Warren Marsh and Lee. They had these very beautiful light sounds. So it's sort of, pardon me. It's sort of about respecting that and not playing in a way that's going to take away from their sound. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's kind of how I've always thought about playing with saxophonists like that, because it would be very easy for us as drummers
To swallow them up.
to kind of swallow them or just play in a way that's going to not let their tone speak, because so much of it is about that sound. You know? It's interesting. It's kind of an interesting thing.
It's nice.
What was the name of that record again?
It's called Spirits and... Oh, man.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
But the track is called Small Guys.
It's called Small... Yeah, that's a tune that goes all the way back to the late 40s. Miniature Song. That wasn't a new tune back then.
Okay.
Yeah, here, you know it. Why don't we get the next track up and all...
You want to do Effie?
Oh,
Sure.
man! I'm so glad you chose it.
I found the time stamps too. If you didn't get them,
I think there's only one that had an actual...
I sent them after each one.
Yeah, but only one of them has a knot from the top.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Indian song, right?
Yeah, Effie's at the top.
Yeah,
You're right. I just
okay.
didn't remember. So this is off of a Bobby Hutcherson record called Patterns.
This is one of my favorites.
Oh.
Sorry, no.
Move
Sorry.
your phone from the
I got it.
receiver.
This is one of my favorites. This is a great record.
All right, now the ad is done. So this is... Oh, what cool artwork, too. Man.
Yeah, these records look cool.
Yeah, they're
Great.
amazing.
Yeah.
So this is Effie from the top. Light.
Beautiful.
That cymbal beat is just so...
It's so beautiful,
So
yeah.
amazing. It has so much bounce.
It's such a beautiful record, man. James Spaulding and Stanley. I mean, it's just such a beautiful record, man. All
Who
the tunes.
did Max play that tune? Who played that
Yes.
tune? Okay. 'Cause it's like giving me this weird, like, why do I know this tune?
Yep.
beautiful. I heard some Tony in that.
I love the meatiness of the cymbal.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
With him in general,
Yeah.
it's like there's this clarity and woodiness to the beat that I.
But it's
I've
still
always
light.
loved.
Like it still has that beautiful floaty.
Yeah.
For
really.
me, his cymbal beat is great because it feels great, but also it can have that. It can have this beautiful, weight to it, but still take a tune like that and not crush it. You know what I mean?
It's all that. It's light. It's strong.
Yep.
The sound of it is so good.
It's great, man.
Man, so killing. He's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to listen to this whole record. So.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those too. There's a bunch of those Bobby records. With
Yeah,
Joe.
they're so great. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So that's definitely a K. So my thought of his ride cymbal sound is totally different now, because I just know that A sound. That's got to be a K.
Yeah.
I mean,
It certainly could be.
I don't know what else it could be.
I mean, it's one of those. It's either a K or an A. But I think that's probably a K. I mean, it's weird. Like for some reason, like the way I'm hearing it today, I'm having a harder time than normal.
Yeah.
Like hearing, not normal here, just on my own listening.
Yeah.
To hear like the real, the quality of the sound of the cymbal. And I can hear all the notes and stuff. But anyway.
Sounds like to me like you borrowed Tony's ride and used that on this session.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably stories behind that.
Well,
stuff,
like real quick. I mean, we all obsess about these classic ride cymbals and these recordings, and I, sometimes I just think if we all got to play any of these cymbals, they would just sound like cymbals. I really think that it's the person playing it. It's their
100%
touch,
is.
and I think if Joe would have been playing some Peisty cymbal that day, we'd hear the recording and be like, "Man, Joe Chambers sounds amazing."
That's true.
It's the guy. You know?
I mean, it's the person. I mean, there's so many stories about Tony's cymbal, guys who played it and were like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like it's completely different.
Well, even take someone now that there's so much footage of people playing
Yeah.
in recent times, like someone like Dejanet, who I've seen so many videos. Like the cymbals are always different.
Yeah.
And it always sounds just like Jack.
It's like him.
So it's whatever.
I think it's fun to sort of speculate and talk about
it's totally fun, and I'm happy to do it all day.
But you're right. It's like he could have been playing whatever, and it would still be great.
Yeah.
It's just the lore of it for me, because we have no proof.
Yeah.
Unless there's a log sheet of the gear that he rented for that day.
Right.
It's like we have no idea. There's no photos. There's no videos.
I mean, but I feel like when I hear Joe play, it's like usually one of two cymbals, kind of, that I hear a lot from that era.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I heard a story, and I won't even say the names, but I heard a story that a somewhat famous jazz player had asked Joe about some of his cymbals, and I think Joe was like, "Oh yeah, here you can buy it off me. Like here's a price." And then I heard the guy didn't buy it, and then I started thinking, maybe I should try to buy it. But it's like that would just be more just out of like a love for those records. It'd be cool to say, this is the cymbal that Joe Chambers played because he's a hero.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've played a bunch of old K's in old days, and they all sound pretty good.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally different. But I'd heard Elvin had an apartment full of Ks, like literal apartment full, some of which maybe never got used. So when he would give them away or sell them, you don't know what you're getting. He just had hundreds of Ks in his apartment.
I know Jeff Hamilton told me Mel Lewis had in his apartment, there was a bathroom that they didn't use, and in this bathtub, if he pulled the curtain back, there were cymbal bags stacked.
Wow.
And Jeff told me a story. Jeff, I hope it's cool that I'm telling this. He told me that he was looking for a cymbal. I don't know. And he was at Mel's apartment, and Mel said, and he took him into the bathroom, and he said he pulled a cymbal out, and he listened to it, and he said, "Here, try this one."
Yeah.
And Jeff told me, he said, Mel, if I like it, you might not get it back. And Mel said, "Yeah, that's what I want to hear, though."
Oh, that's amazing.
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
The next one for you, Tom, is Rufus.
Oh man,
You want to go there?
Yeah. So this is a really cool record. This is from the Newport Festival in 1965. This is Archie Shepp's group, which featured Bobby Hutcherson, Archie, a wonderful European bassist, Barry Phillips. I'm not sure how you pronounce his first name. I never have been. And Joe. And this is one of Archie's sort of classic tunes from that era. Rufus, who swung his neck or swung his face to the wind, then his neck snapped. Like that's the whole title.
Wow.
But it's a very cool tune, and so we're going to hear Joe's. We're going to hear into like a solo and then the head out. It's a short solo, but it's very, very cool. Check this out.
All right. What? Who was counting? There was like someone said 7, 8 in there.
I don't know.
Did you hear that?
No, I heard some people. I didn't know what they said, but I heard some.
He was like, we gotta listen to it again. Go ahead.
I gotta get this record.
It's called New Thing at Newport.
Okay.
Trains band is on it. There's a ferocious version of my favorite things on this.
Holy smokes.
It's called New Thing at Newport. It's on Impulse.
Okay.
It's an Impulse record.
All right, listen to it again. Towards the end of his,
Yeah, when it's after the solo.
someone says 7, 8, like they're counting measures.
Man, with that tune, they probably were. It's a great little solo he played.
So good.
I think that's Archie.
That's my guess too.
I think that's Archie, yeah. I don't know why he was counting like that. I don't know how they charted that out, man.
Yeah.
They played the stuff out of it, though.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a great record. And there's a few other tracks. They play great. Archie recites some of his poetry. It's a great record, man. It's a great one.
When you guys play a solo like that, are you assuming that no one's following along and you're going to have to bring them back in?
I can't play a solo like that.
If I'm not playing like over a form or something like that, if I'm just kind of taking an open solo where maybe tempos change or I'm playing more free, yeah, I assume that people aren't.
Okay. So you're not trying to even keep yourself in.
I mean, sometimes I may just try to lead it in with a phrase that everybody can hear and a nod, or sometimes I might have to be like 1, 2, and count somebody back in.
I think it depends on the tune a lot. Like some tunes have those musical devices that you can use.
Or you can hint at it like
exactly.
You can play the melody or
a little
play
bit. Yeah. It depends on the moment too. I mean, there's been, and I'm sure this is true for probably all of us. Like you're on gigs where you're playing, and that is sort of the arrived at agreement. You know what I mean? That it's just going to open up.
Yeah.
But sometimes not. It's what makes it interesting.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I get self-conscious about breaking the form. Like I just play in time. Even when you're going over the bar line.
I mean, for me, it depends on the setting, and the people I'm playing with. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah,
cut you off.
no, you didn't cut me off. I mean, I feel like when I was younger, I was more likely to get lost in a form playing by myself. Or even to maybe at times when I was really young, even know necessarily, like I wasn't even thinking about that sometimes when I was, a younger player. And I would still hint at maybe like the tune to get somebody back in. But I think now it's like, even though I play open solos, a lot of times like I enjoy the challenge of playing over the tune and trying to find, things to say as an instrument that isn't playing like notes, but and trying to make it musical and relate to the music more. I'm finding more and more. It's more fun to keep trying to learn to do that better and better.
For me, I almost always use a form because of that. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy that challenge.
Totally.
And if it's if you're playing a tune that has a form, I just sort of naturally usually hear it because I've been playing it for how many minutes, and so it's just sort of I'm like in that thing. So a lot of times to break that is almost like kind of jolting.
Yeah.
But for me, playing open solos is very challenging because I don't do it nearly as much as other drummers do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of like both, but for me, it depends on the setting and who I'm playing with and what we're playing. As far as do I abandon the form or do I, stick to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that record's cool. What's it called again?
New Thing at Newport.
Man.
It's on Impulse.
That could have been recorded yesterday.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. And I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that was a working group for him at that time. I don't know how long it was they were together, but I think that was like his group at that time.
Dig it.
Let's do this one next.
Eris?
Yeah.
All right, let me bring it up. Probably have an ad to deal with. Why'd you pick this one? This is a different Wayne record?
No, this is an Andrew Hill record.
This is a good one.
And again, like I could have picked anything off any of these records, but
Yeah, there's so much to choose from.
this one's a little more. You used a word earlier, Mike, when you were talking about his sound. I forget what you said. Like you said, angular and something.
Edgy?
Yeah, I don't know what you did. Something like that.
Yeah.
There's this record kind of has this
Totally
like
does.
edge to it, and
Absolutely.
it's kind of, I don't know. It's just like Andrew Hill's, the pianist Andrew Hill's. His music is, and it can also be from album to album very different as far as the mood, but he's a very unique. He's a very unique pianist where no one really sounds like him but him.
No.
There's people I've heard, I know Jason Moran's a big fan. I can hear that influence in Jason Moran's playing. But when I got enamored with Joe Chambers, it was just like that quest. Like, let me find everything I can find that he plays on. And then, next thing leads to something else. Then you get into Andrew Hill. You're like, oh, I need to buy all the Andrew Hill records that Joe Chambers doesn't play on now. So, yeah, this is a tune off this record called Pax. And
Great record.
It's great. It's just great.
Before we hear this, just to let you guys know, the Lee Konitz record is called Figure in Spirits.
Okay.
It's on the Progressive label. Sorry. Couldn't find that because I'm aging.
Does anyone know the background of Andrew Hill? Is he coming out of any particular school of playing?
He actually started playing, he played in a lot of early R&B groups. He played behind some singers.
Really?
Yeah, he played with Johnny Hartman for a little while. Yeah, he kind of...
Go ahead.
No. That was it.
I'm not sure if I saw this in a documentary, if I read it in a book, something about Blue Note, but I read that, like, the guys that ran the label were talking about, like, how they loved all the artists on their labels, but they, in this particular thing I read or heard, they were talking about, like, Monk, Herbie Nichols, and Andrew Hill being, like, these particular finds
Yeah, they loved
that
those
they
guys.
were so excited about.
Yep.
And it makes sense to me. There's kind of a thread
Totally is.
between those players. They're such unique pianists,
Very unique.
So,
All right. Well, this is from the top, Eris, off the record, Pax by Andrew Hill.
There's some meat on that one, man. Some hair on that one.
This record did not come out when it was first recorded. It
Really?
actually came. This was in the vault for a while. But it's, I mean, Richard Davis, Andrew Hill. I mean, it just, yeah. I don't. It's amazing.
That sounds
Yeah.
like a pretty mean band.
And there was a bunch of that like 3 phrasing you were talking
Yeah,
about.
absolutely.
You know.
Yeah, the whole thing kind of feels like it's swaying in this weird 3/4. So good. I don't know this record at all.
Yeah.
You know, like we've talked about in some of these before, and I think I've addressed in some other interview with you. Like, I play so many gigs now where I'm just playing a cymbal, a snare drum, bass drum, and hi-hat, and I'm just finding so much. Like, I'm learning so. And this has been going on for years and years and years, and sometimes like my favorite things to listen to with any of these drummers that I admire is just. The stuff that happens in those 4 voices, you know, like no toms. Not the tom playing is great, but just hearing how they use the left foot or the bass drum or the snare drum or the right cymbal, and it's like that goes for groove playing, like beat playing too. It's like, man, it's kind of all.
It's
there.
all in there.
You know.
I love doing gigs like that too. I do a lot of them, and it's a challenge, but it's fun because it is sort of, as you said, those are kind of the primary voices, you know.
Yeah. And all these great players, they could do it with probably even less. You know, it's like I felt like every time I play that way, it's teaching me how to play better.
Absolutely, 100%.
You know, you're not just hitting stuff because you have things to hit.
Well, especially
you know?
improvising, because it's getting the most out of that and
Yeah.
finding the different. I mean, the snare drum alone, you can get so many different colors and things out of it. As well, if you have a good cymbal, you can do that too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a lot you can get out of it if you want.
Yeah,
And almost all these records, almost all of them, it's like a 4-piece kit and 2 cymbals. You know, so it's like, you know, I'm not nothing against big kits. If you play in some prog band, you want to play
If you need
octobans,
it. Yeah,
it's great, do that. I like that too. But man, it's like I just keep liking less and less, kind of.
Yeah.
And his left foot had so many colors. It was like somehow he got it to bite through.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what was he doing? How did he get that to do that?
Yeah. Amazing.
Magic. All right, Tom, where are we at with you? Chief Crazy Horse.
Oh yeah.
Oh man,
So-
killing. This is my jam.
Yeah, so I picked this for a specific reason. So I think Joe, like so many of these guys, all of them probably, you know, he could come up with a very appropriate, unique, musical, hip way to play these unique tunes. And so this tune, I love the little groove he plays on it. It's very simple, but I feel like it makes the tune do what it do, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll check it out.
Is this an excerpt or from the top?
It's an excerpt, but it's kind of from the top, I think.
That's the ride sound that I'm
Yeah.
familiar with.
Man, what a beautiful sounding recording.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
What's the record?
Adam's Apple.
Adam's
Adam's
Apple. On board.
Wayne Shorter.
But just, you know, the way he constructs that little groove, the little offbeat hi-hat,
yeah.
and the way he's playing the cymbal and the tom-toms.
And the
it's
little
just-
rim, rim to the
it's
tom.
just, yeah, it's simple, but it's like, yeah, that's how you play that tune.
Yeah.
You know?
Which brings up a topic I wanted to ask you guys about writing parts for jazz tunes? Like how much, like if you're presented with a composition, is it usually first instinct or does it go through a morphosis for you or for the band? Some of those Miles records with the bootlegs kind of revealed, oh, it didn't start out the way we heard.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think some of that is having the a frequent, how do I say this? Having the people you play with that are writing music. You know, a lot of gigs, I'm sure all of us do, you're just playing tunes that other people played. So you're going to play them as you heard them or how you interpret them. Like certain groups I play with, like take two different groups, let's say, like this band I have with Paul Thompson and Ben Obie called Thoth Trio. Like Ben's writing is a very, he has his voice. Or someone like Dan Wilson on guitar, his writing is a totally different thing. It couldn't be further apart. So, like you mentioned earlier with Joe, it's like you have to do what the leader is looking for or what the composer is looking for, while at the same time trying to find how you want to navigate that music. And then I find the more I play that music, then new things start to reveal themselves. And like you saying, like these rehearsals with Miles, like stuff develops. Because now I'll play a gig with Thoth Trio, maybe it's a tune we played 15 years ago, and it's like, man, we play it totally different now.
Yeah.
And that might just be through
Evolution.
It's not even that you even realize it happened.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, this used to sit in a different tempo. This used to be, I played this, a different way. So I think it's, just trying to figure out, I'm not giving great information, but trying to figure out what works and the quickest way to get it happening in a short amount of time.
That is good information, though. 'Cause I think part of the challenge of playing this music today is being able to assess those things quickly on the fly a lot of the time.
Sure.
And figure out what works quickly. Especially, I mean, how many times, you on a gig and someone says, let's try this tune, I just wrote it. It's kind of like this, 1, 2, and you're figuring it out on the fly. Your antennas are up, So I think it's an important skill.
And it's nice to have a rapport, like a friendship or a relationship with people you're working with, because then you can trust they're going to give you the good,
Absolutely.
If Dan Wilson says to me, it's like an Elvin 3, it's like kind of what that is. Or Ben will just say, I'm hearing like a straight 8th feel, just do your thing.
Yeah.
And I kind of know what that means.
Right.
And then when you hear the mood and the vibe, you're like, okay, I know what to do with this, know.
Also, another great reason to be an avid listener, because so many times on gigs, people will describe things to you by saying, it's like an Elvin 3, or it's like Jack DeJohnette on Bitches Brew, or this is you know what I mean? And if you've never heard that stuff, you're not going to know.
Sure. This is an ECM
exactly.
straight 8th.
Exactly.
You get these
perfect example.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right, what we got next? I've got so many records to listen to.
I have one.
Indian song?
Do you have 2 more or 1 more? Does Tom have 2 more or 1 more?
You got 2 more. You want to
do 1 more, Tom?
That's fine.
You want to do a Don Friedman or Idlewild?
Either one, man. Either one.
Well, Idlewild's next. So.
Okay. So this is from a classic Bobby Hutcherson record on Blue Note called Dialogue, which is one of my favorites.
You always talk about this record.
It's a great record. I love it. The band is great and the music's great. It's all, The reason I chose this is he's playing brushes on it. And one of the things that I really like about Joe's playing, this is true with some of these other greats too, is that he can simultaneously fulfill the function of a drummer, but also contribute creatively in really great ways. And I think that's a unique skill to have.
Yeah.
Some drummers can be very creative, but when it comes time to sort of take care of business, they can leave you hanging. And then other guys are great at that, but they might not be as creative as others. And he can really do both. So that's kind of why I chose this. Plus, he was a very good brush player, and he gets a great sound. So
man, it's a much bigger topic. Can creativity be practiced and developed? That's been a mission for me to figure that one out.
That's a tough question.
All right, let's listen to it.
So, I mean, what I love about that is that Richard Davis and Bobby are obviously dialoguing a little bit, and so he's keeping some semblance of time and flow with it, but he's supporting, but he's also kind of nudging them in this direction and that direction, and in a very respectful musical way. You know, it might sound simple, but that's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's got to be listening. It's probably sound rude, but I feel like he's a more schooled. Like, he's got all of what I love about Elvin, which we're going to talk about next, but there's like a more sensitivity to the composition that I don't necessarily hear with Elvin.
Well, I think being a great composer, I think he was maybe a little more, not that he would be more in tune than someone like Elvin, but you know what I mean. He approaches it with a composer's mind.
Yeah.
And I
Great
think
arranger.
Oh,
Like,
my
he's
goodness.
a ranger. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
So beautiful. I don't know any of these records. I'm so excited.
I'm excited for you because it's like,
I can't wait to hear what you think of them all.
because that's how I get when
Yeah.
oh man, I got this whole new window to check out, you know. And there's so much.
Oh,
great
man.
stuff. You know, just the Blue Note records alone.
Yeah,
there's so
just
much
those
truth.
alone is amazing. You know, the Max Roach M Boom records, there's not a lot of them, but those are really fun to listen to. I mean, they're musical and they're cool and they're, you know.
I had the first one, but I got that so young and it was not anything that
You probably weren't that into.
I was like, what
What
the?
is this?
I'm not super familiar with those.
They're interesting. They're fun to listen to. There's
Yeah.
a live one at SOBs. That's the last one, I think. And then there's a couple collage, and then the first one. There's not many, but there's a few.
Indian Song is your final pick.
Yeah, this is another tune off of Wayne Shorter, etc. I think, is this one I picked?
Yeah, I got
section?
58 seconds in.
I think I just really liked some of what he was getting into. I can speak better on it when I hear it. But I mean, this record and Adam's Apple. I mean, like, man, I could just listen to these two records
Yeah, they're
forever. You know.
All right, here we go.
It's grooving, it's creative,
it's wide.
Yeah.
Like there's such a wide. It's like when he closes those hi-hats.
I know.
It's like it takes like up a minute to just like. It's like there's so much sound.
I know.
There's so much space, even though there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and I love that it grooves, but there's still so much creativity within it. You know, like a lot of times you think when something's super creative in a group aspect, it's very free, which it can be. But in this, it's like it's that earthy groove, but they're doing all this. It's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful too, like the way that somebody will interject an idea and the way it takes shape.
I know.
Herbie plays something, Joe follows it.
Yep.
You know, Joe plays something, Herbie and Wayne follow it. It's
those guys were master listeners, man.
Man,
They were so in tune with everybody.
And some of that stuff you got into at the end of the melody when you started kind of playing some new ideas.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I'm hearing it now like I heard it when I first heard this when I was 20 or whatever. I was like, man, I've never heard anybody play that way.
No.
It's like that's like really, to me, like that's some Joe Chambers stuff, you know.
Yeah.
You can hear the ride beat and be like, okay, there's lots of guys that have great ride beats.
Sure.
His is unique.
Yep.
But it's, you know, there's a precedent set of what that is. Some of this stuff, it's like, where did that come from?
I know.
You
I know. Well, I hear. I mean, I hear some Elvin, some Tony, some Roy Haynes, some.
Sure.
There's all kind of influence in his playing, but yet he still stands as this like. That's Joe Chambers, like you said.
Jack's like that too to me.
Totally.
And there might be some of that composer in them, the fact that they play vibes, piano.
Yep.
Who knows? But
There's some magic in there. It's kind of, that's the thing for me. It's like it's untranscribable what he's doing.
No, you can't write that down.
It just has like a certain edge to it.
if you played the transcription, it's going to just sound like you're reading out of a book.
Yeah, you're gonna
and not playing that.
You can't. Yeah, that's part of what makes it so
The
great.
nuance.
You can't duplicate it.
I had to look to see who was on bass because man,
Cecil McBee, he
Holding it
sounds
down.
great. And we were talking about this the other day because we just did a whole thing on this album. And actually, we're probably getting as deep on this album in different ways than the other thing we
Sure.
recorded. But the first tune on the album, if you ever check this album out, hearing it now, it's like, I was like, man, I didn't realize, like, Cecil McBee's just kind of, like, if I was on a gig or a session and this bass player started doing that, I would be like, what's this guy doing?
What is he doing?
But when you hear it, you're like, man, that's amazing.
Killing. Yeah.
And he's not really playing the function of bass.
No.
He's just kind of, and there's a lot of that on this album from everybody. Just just nice, interesting decisions. And
But then there's Toy Tune, and it's just like,
yeah,
it's
there's
just
that
in
beat.
there, man.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
man.
great.
Now, was Cecil in Max's band for a number of years in the 80s? Wasn't
That's
he
this
the guy?
No.
Who was in that 80s band?
There was Tyrone Brown, and then there was I'm getting old, man. There
I
were
don't know
a
those
couple
records.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
era.
love that stuff. We could do something on that. I love that band.
I need to get more hip to that era.
Yeah.
Well, we got one more to go. Don Friedman, Spring Sign.
Yeah, this is an interesting record. I picked this because this is again sort of a Joe Chambers record that you kind of look at it and be like, wow, Joe Chambers on this record. Because Don Friedman was a really good pianist, but he wasn't in that Blue Note circle. Like he's on Max Roach's "We Insist, Freedom Now," but he wasn't, to my knowledge, and maybe he wasn't. He just wasn't on those Blue Note records. I'm not sure, but. The reason I chose this is very free, and to hear Joe just sort of do his thing, like he's contributing in all these really great ways. So that's why I chose it.
So we are starting at 5:15 in this track.
Yeah, this is I think right after the melody, if I remember correctly, going into the first sort of improvisational section.
Dang, 1966.
Yep.
I gotta get that record.
So it's literally right in the same period as those Blue Note records.
he sounds great, man.
Yeah, he's a great pianist, man. He's a great pianist, but it's that takes so much artistic maturity and confidence to play like that. I mean, that's like, this is something we talk about. Anytime I get a chance to play in that setting, I feel like I grow so much because to play that freely, like, you got to mean everything you're doing. You know, like, you can't kind of be like, oh, maybe. Like, no, you got to.
Yeah.
And he's so good at, like, just, like, he's contributing, like, with textures, and then it's like, okay, we're going to play time now, you know, and to add that, you know.
Yep.
It's something, man. It's really very interesting.
So where were we in the free jazz era in '66?
That was kind of it.
Stuff had happened.
Yeah, I
already,
mean, that was
you know?
sort of at the beginning, getting into sort of the height of it. Really,
Okay.
You know?
Like when was Ornette's big breakthrough?
like late
59,
50s.
59,
Yeah.
Okay.
60.
So it'd been happening for a while, man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It had, but it was by 64, 65, 66, it was sort of, that was like a scene by that
But some of these records we've talked about, like even, I'm more familiar with the Blue Note records than I am. Like, I don't know that Don Friedman record, but like, like the Andrew Hill records and some of the Bobby records, maybe more so than the Wayne record. Although some of the other Wayne records get a little looser too. But I mean, there's so much of both sides of the playing there. There's so much free time kind of textural playing, and there's so much just like, here's the groove,
Swing,
here's the swing, you know, here's pattern kind of playing. And that's something that's cool for you to, like, because you're going to check all this stuff out. There's so much to chew on.
I know, and I love that stuff.
Yeah.
It's so fun to listen to it because, going back to what we said earlier, you can hear it hundreds of times, and then you hear it again one day and you're like, well, wait a minute, what was that?
Completely,
You know?
man.
I mean, that's the gift that keeps on giving.
No, you couldn't be more right, man.
I mean, you know, we paid, you know, $18, $20 for these CDs. I've gotten more than my money's worth out of them.
Completely, man.
You know?
I got to start tracking some of this stuff down on vinyl. Is the Blue Note stuff hard to find?
So a lot of it's gotten reissued.
I mean,
like,
original pressings, yeah, but
Yeah.
they're available on
Right,
vinyl.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. I'm avoiding getting all that stuff on vinyl because I'll just start wanting to buy everything. And I have so much of it. I have it all on CD, but like, I just don't want to buy it all again. Even though it's like, I love going to Tom's and opening it up and looking at the pictures real big and stuff. But man, what great music, and I'm just so thankful that
Oh, man.
I'm just so happy I discovered Joe and that I was able to have that light bulb turn on. I was able to hear it, you know, and it made me really obsess about him in some ways, you know.
It's nuanced. It's not as obvious as Tony and Philly Joe. Like,
I
their
agree.
stuff is kind of obvious.
I agree.
His is not as obvious to me. It reveals over time, like, what he's going for.
See, for me, that's how I came to appreciate Joe. When I first heard him, I liked it. I was like, man, this guy's great. But I appreciate him now so much more. I think just because I'm older and I've had experiences. And so now when I hear him, it's like, man, there's a lot going on there. It took me a minute to kind of really appreciate it. You know?
Yeah.
Dope. Well, thank you guys. I've got to
Yeah,
go buy some
it's
records.
great.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
All right, that is it for this week's episode. Hopefully you found some new records to dig into, and maybe we made you a new fan of Joe Chambers if you're not familiar with him. This is some of the best music out there, in my opinion. There's so many layers to Joe's playing, just these records of this time period. It's just such great music. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, drop a review over on Spotify. Drop some comments on the YouTube video. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Give us a 5-star rating. We want to make sure the show gets heard by as many drummers as possible, and we need you to help share it to make that happen. So until next week, go listen to some records, and we'll see you then.